This is Scott Becker with the Becker Private Equity Podcast. This will be two quick notes. The first thing we're going to do is talk about 5 recent books we read and give you our quick thoughts on them, and hopefully some of them ring a bell. And if you're the first person to text me with a book recommendation, I'd love to hear it. Send it to me at 773-766-5322. You had to have listened to this podcast, and I'll send you a $100 Amazon gift certificate. You got to give me at least one book. It could be fiction or nonfiction, and I'll try and see if it's interesting and try and read it. So thank you. So here are the 5 books we recently read and some of our thoughts on them. First is a nonfiction book, and I'll go through the 3 nonfiction books first. Blood and Oil, about Saudi Arabia and MBS, their current king, and sort of by Bradley Hope and Justin Scheck. And it's a fascinating discussion about Saudi Arabia trying to bring itself into the modern age, but also not as much as some progressives might like, because no freedom of speech. It also talks about the murder of Saudi dissident Khashoggi, who was also a dissident and a writer for the Washington Post, and the story of the Saudis killing him when he was in Turkey at the Saudi Arabia embassy. It also talks about how Saudi Arabia, for all the good and bad, is the bulwark against Iran, and how much the Saudis hate the Iranians and vice versa, and why it's probably so important for the U.S. to continue to support the Saudis. Fascinating book by Bradley Hope and Justin Scheck. Second, book by Jon Acuff, and John's an inspirational writer. I'm loving listening to his audiobook. All it takes is a goal. He's just a pleasure to listen to. So that's the second. The third nonfiction book is Amazon Unbound by Brad Stone, which comes about a decade after his book called The Everything Store, about Amazon generally. Brad is a lifelong follower of Amazon, and it's a fascinating book. He's interesting. He talks about Amazon, Jeff Bezos, innovation, the Washington Post that Jeff Bezos bought, the journalist murder of, Khashoggi. That's also discussed. Khashoggi, I can't pronounce the name exactly right, but it's also discussed in the book Blood and Oil. So an interesting overlap, and just a fascinating book about Amazon, and sort of Jeff Bezos stepping into this next part of his life, leaving his wife, taking up with Lauren Sanchez, how Lauren Sanchez's brother finked them out to the National Enquirer. Just a fascinating book, business-wise, gossip-wise, interesting on so many levels. The fourth book is called Argyle by Ellie Conway. That's one I'm having the hardest time getting through. Nonfiction book, a little bit long, a little bit all over the place. Probably fascinating, but I see why it only got ratings of 3.4, 3.5 on Apple. I'm having trouble getting through the whole thing, even at double speed. And finally, the book Wolf Trap, another fiction book by Connor Sullivan. And that's sort of, again, thriller, mystery, et cetera, geopolitical, and pretty good. Certainly not going to be on the top of the books of all time. It's no it's no Ken Follett book. It's no Jeffrey Archer, great book. It's no Leon Uris, Exodus, but fine and a pleasure to read. Wolf Trap by Connor Sullivan. So those are 5 of the most recent books we're watching. I'll quickly give you 5 of our most listened to guests on the Becker's Healthcare Podcast. Suzette Oyeko at Montefiore Health System, a fascinating story. Justin Oppenheimer, the Chief Strategy Officer and brilliant person in hospital special surgery. Rod Hochman, the CEO of Providence Healthcare. Mike Dowling, the CEO of Northwell Health. And finally, J.P. Gallagher, the CEO of Northshore University Health System, now Endeavor Health. Again, those are 5 books we've read recently and some feedback on those. Thank you for listening to the Becker Private Equity and Business Podcast.